Welcome back to another edition of Bold Blind Beauty on Air podcast, the show that's clearing the air for more air, access, inclusion, and representation. I'm Stephanie McCoy, and with me are my co-hosts.
I'm Nazreen Buddha.
And Sylvia Stinson Perez.
The overall purpose of A.I.R, access, inclusion, and representation, is to fully acknowledge, value, and respect people on the blindness spectrum. To create an inclusive culture, meaningful steps must be taken to fully integrate blind people from boardroom to entry level and throughout. Today's podcast guest will touch on this topic as well as shift perceptions on how blind people are seen. Since Nazreen, Sylvia, and I are very excited about this episode, we forgo our banter so that you can experience the full conversation.
We are thrilled to have on Bold Blind Beauty on Air today two magnificent gentlemen who are just incredible. They are amazing, and they've done some amazing things that I would not even consider. So welcome Dan Berlin and Jack Chen, who I also am just so fortunate to know as we are on a couple of boards of directors together. Dan and Jack, will you tell us a little bit about yourselves, about your vision loss journey, and what you do? Let's start with Jack.
Sure. Hey, Sylvia. Really great to be here chatting with everybody. I'm totally blind. I've lost my eyesight completely in an eye operation that didn't go well back in 1991. And that was when I was a sophomore in high school. And my sort of journey through blindness started much earlier than that. And the thing that has kind of marked and motivated me to continue is a conversation that I had with a fifth grade teacher. Being a son of an immigrant family, grades in school was really important to me, and I was very stressed out as a low vision person back then. I was frustrated with how difficult school was, and she told me, "No, Jack, you don't have to really worry about working so hard because the government's always going to be there to take care of you if you need it." And it became an inflection moment for me as I thought about it and I never wanted to be that person who needed help, who to be underestimated. And it's been kind of a life's journey of mine to go outside of other people's expectations and to approve what I can do on my own outside of what other people might expect me to be able to do. I gave the commencement address when I was graduated from the College of Engineering at UC Berkeley with a master's degree in computer science. The title of my talk was "Do What the World Tells You You Can't Do, and Let That Be a Motivator to You."
That's fantastic, Jack. You're such a mentor to so many, including me. Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Well, Sylvia, you're way too kind. I got to say, I want to get this recording just for your introduction. Thank you for that. I really appreciate being here. This is awesome what you guys are doing. And for me, my blindness journey started when I was 7. I was diagnosed with Stargardt's, eventually re-diagnosed with cone rod dystrophy. But I pretty much hid it. I faked it all through middle school, elementary school, middle school, and into high school. And dealt with that transition before it got to a point where I had no central vision left and really couldn't fake the fact that I couldn't see my computer screen or drive or do things like that. And took almost a 180-degree turn and started using a cane, told all of my coworkers at the time that, oh yeah, hey, I'm blind. And it was revolutionary because I had several of them come up to me. One woman in particular said, wow, why didn't you tell us? Because for the past 3 years of working together, I just thought you were the rudest person in the office because I always wave at you and you never wave back. And that to me was a changing moment where I said, okay, I'm just who I am. I was built this way, and it's a hand we're dealt. It's not a good hand or bad hand. It just is, and it's just our job to go out and make the most of it. So I went to graduate school and then 12 or so year career in corporate America with a couple international companies working in different parts of the world, and then co-founded my own vanilla extract company. Ran that for several years before selling and exiting that in 2018, which was fantastic. But those experiences were incredible. And, much to what Jack was saying about breaking preconceived notions, I don't think I've ever been in a board meeting or a boardroom or even a conference room with another professional that's been blind. And that's my goal, is to change that, to make a difference, to create an environment that really allows us to fully utilize the strengths that we each have.
Jack and Dan, you both defy expectations and encourage the world to do so. And I appreciate you so much for that. Steph, I'm passing it off to you to ask them the next question.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. First of all, Jack and Dan, it is so wonderful to have you two join us today for this wonderful conversation. Just listening to your stories just fires me up, because Bold Blind Beauty on Air is all about what you two basically talked about in your introduction: access, inclusion, and representation, and really changing the thinking of, instead of focusing on our weaknesses or the things that we can't do, let's focus on our strengths. One of the things that you two did was the Race Across America in 2018. And what I would like to know is, first, how did you get into tandem biking and what made you want to do this? Dan, let's start with you.
Yeah, definitely. So Jack and I met a couple years before 2018 on a really cool podcast that he was working on, and we found that we got along great and had very similar points of view about the world and our places in it. He and I are both Ironman triathletes, and we decided to look for something that was just really challenging to do, that would really help to highlight the perceived limits that are put on people who are blind out there in the world, and something we could use to just destroy those perceptions out there. And we came across Race Across America. It's the toughest bike race in the world. It's a single stage race, meaning you don't stop. And it goes from basically just north of San Diego, Oceanside, California, to Annapolis, Maryland. So 3,100 miles. And we have 9 days to complete this nonstop race. And we put together a team of 4 blind cyclists riding tandems with 4-sighted pilots, and just decided to really put everything into this physical challenge that many serious cyclists, look as the pinnacle of cycling endurance.
Well, if I could, add on to what Dan said and just share a little bit about kind of the motivation, a little bit more drilling down. I'm going to tell a story that just happened to me. I just went to my 25th college reunion at Harvard about 3 weeks ago, and I ran into an old friend of mine. His name is Edwin Lin. He's a senior executive at Citicorp. And I was standing by a tree outside in Harvard Yard, and he came up to me just, out of random, and said, "I have one big regret at Harvard. My regret is that I couldn't help you more." And I was like, what do you mean? Well, it turns out Edwin roomed with me for a summer after freshman year, where I took multivariable calculus and differential equations. Edwin is a math whiz, and I needed help because the professor was writing all this stuff on the board and I couldn't follow it, yada, yada. Everyone knows the drill. He came to class with me and he sat with me and he said, "I can't do this. I can't explain this to you. The teacher's going so fast. I have no idea how you did this." And, I graduated with honors, and Edwin and I stayed friends. But he told me that experience and having known me really changed him. When he was at Citibank, he had an opportunity to interview someone who's blind for a role on his team. And his other team members questioned whether this was a wise thing to do. And he stood up and he said, absolutely not. I've seen it done before. And that experience that Edwin had working with me, was powerful to change his perceptions of what blind people could do and what was necessary to help them to be able to be successful. It didn't take much, but it did take an advocate. And he became that advocate mainly because he knew someone who was successful, who was blind. And so when you think about blindness and you think about success and you think about, other people's perceptions, we can do the same thing. We need to replicate Edwin's experience, and we need to make it possible for everyone in America and everyone else around the world to be able to see success in plain sight. And that was Dan and my sort of impetus behind doing this race and also creating this full-length documentary. Because we didn't want the opportunity to go past for some people to not have the experience of seeing disability normalized and success normalized in the disability community, in the blindness community. And so that is the way that we want to disrupt the perceived thinking about people who are blind in America. And that's why we did the race. And that's what we want to do, is put this in front of every person in America and every person in the world so that people can see that people who are blind can be successful at what they do.
We have an opportunity every single day to do that in our lives. We are on stage and people are watching us. When we can connect with them and show, hey, we are just as capable of you as you are. We might just do things differently and help people understand that it's such a great moment, but that they do carry on to every other opportunity that they have to interact with someone who's blind or with any other disability. They see the potential.
Hi, Dan and Jack. This is Nazreen. I absolutely love listening to what you guys are talking about. When Sylvia brought this to our attention, that there's tandem cyclists that are doing some great work, I got excited because one of the things I loved doing growing up was riding a bike. I was always riding my bike everywhere I went, and it's something I miss doing. And you guys have just now sparked an interest in me again to get back on the bike. But this time, maybe do what you guys are doing, a tandem bike. And you guys are truly breaking perceptions and shattering the limits that are put on blind people or people with visual impairments. And I need to ask you guys, what were the major lessons that you learned about yourselves as a result of the RAM?
I could start, Jack, if you want. Lessons are, we're always learning lessons about ourselves. And I think my lessons have nothing to do with blindness. It was such a challenging race. It's rare in life that we ever have experiences to be put under such level of stress and duress, lack of sleep for multiple days, 4, 5, 6 days in a row, plus physical stress, plus a camera crew, plus expectations of hitting a time goal and working together as a team. One of the lessons I learned, I don't know if it's me, myself, or just in general, but it's really how important it is to be with people that are supportive and to really create or have a impactful team that we're members of and that we work together with. We do so much better. Everybody, blind, sighted, any situation. We do so much better when we're with a collective group of people and we have an environment that can recognize everybody's strength and play to the collective team strength versus always trying to be an individual and make the best of it out there on our own all the time.
Dan,
really
that just
together.
Makes me think of this whole independence/interdependence. And people always want to be so independent. And no person, not one single person, can be totally independent. We all need each other. And so recognizing our strengths and that importance of that team that you're saying is so valuable. I'm so glad you brought up that point.
Yeah, in this race, it was all in it together. If one of the cyclists wasn't going to finish, we were all struggling to finish. So it wasn't about a person getting a fast time. It was about everybody pulling together to get the team across the finish line. And as you can imagine, in events like this, people who are training and competitive athletes, riding 3,000 miles in a couple of days, a little more over a week, we're competitive people. individually competitive, and then channeling that into a team competitive attitude was one of the best lessons I learned about true success.
What about you, Jack? Lessons learned.
I very much agree with what Dan said about teamwork and working together as a team. And you can do so much more when you do it together. One other thing that sort of came clear to me is thinking back on this project, what the team accomplished as a whole, not only in the race but in the sort of post-race, post-production creating of this film that's actually going to launch next month, is the idea that we should never be afraid to take on things. I think one of the folks in the movie, one of Dan's friends, Charles, said, if you're not uncomfortable about what you're about to do, then you're not doing it big enough. What we try to do should make us uncomfortable. There should be some possibility of a failure. I mean, there were so many possibilities of failure all along this route, but it's really going from one of those to the next and really knocking those down where you actually are able to find success and accomplish things that you didn't even think you could do. I very much agree with the point that I believe you made, Sylvia, earlier about the fact that we are all on display as people who are blind and visually impaired. We have the opportunity to redefine how we want people to think about us. And for me, I want to take on those challenges that even I think are difficult or impossible. So I can demonstrate, and continue to be that person that represents the community and brings us to a better place when it comes to what other people think about the community. And just to round out the discussion about the film, we didn't have such a difficult time finding people who were blind, who were athletic, who could do this race. The tougher thing we had was finding people who were blind and visually impaired, who both had athletics as well as the sort of professional profile that would help to highlight what the full capabilities are of people who are blind and visually impaired. And that's something that we also want to change. We call it taking the 70% unemployment rate and bring it down to 7% or lower. And that happens when we bring people in who are blind and visually impaired. We give them big responsibilities. We see that they can do it, and it brings everybody up in the organizations. And so that was what part of our goal was, to highlight the top end of professional society and say, put it in front of people and say, these people are doing it. These people who are blind, they're accomplishing this stuff.
One of the trending hair colors for this summer is mocha brown. It is most flattering on skin tones and hair textures. And best of all, it's low maintenance. Embrace your grays the way the celebs do, with herringbone highlights. Different hues of grays, very flattering. It's okay to show your gray. Continuing with the hair theme, fun for the summer, funky braids, bubble braids, and Medusa ponytails. Great for going to the beach, low maintenance. And you give me butterflies with this beautiful butterfly manicure nail art. Perfect for the summer season. And if you are concerned about having perfect eyeliner, no worries. The smudge look for the summer is in. Remember, if you want a more dramatic look, go for black, or a more subtle look, go for the brown. Happy summer! And that's your bold, blind beauty bite.
Dan mentioned being competitive, and the whole time you're talking, Jack, the word that keeps running through my mind is courageous. And it definitely takes a significant amount of courage to really get out there and live a full life as a person who's blind. You do have to get out of your comfort zone. I think it takes courage to just live life, period, but especially when you add vision loss to that.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of being on stage, you guys are fully on stage in your upcoming movie. So share a little bit more about what's the movie about? What are some highlights of that we can expect?
Yeah, go for it, Jack.
Yeah, this was a true labor of love. It's been a team effort, as the race was. And we've got a full crew of folks doing sound design and editing and, music score and all that. And it's been just a great journey of working with all these people to craft this vision. And so the vision of the film really is the race is actually a backdrop. It's kind of a meta story about, what people would not ordinarily think of that a blind person can do, which is ride their bike across the country, but a metaphor to what people also may not expect, which is that people who are blind and visually impaired can be successful in their careers. The blind cyclists were lawyers, a CEO, marketing professionals. They're people who have come through their journey and are kind of, they're finding success. So the movie is about them. It's about the success journey of people. It's about kind of pulling back the curtain a bit to see what is life like for them, to demystify blindness, to interview them and to say, okay, well, like, what is your life like? You're successful. Now, what did it take to get there? And both from a family perspective, from a work perspective, from a accessibility perspective, all these things to kind of normalize the conversation around blindness and success for people, so that what happens at the end of the movie is that people can see that, okay, I may have an open role, or I may want to consider bringing someone on to fill a role. And now I know that people who are blind and visually impaired can do this. I want to open that up. And so our vision is not only for sort of general public to view the film, but we're also looking for inroads to corporate America, to HR executives, to corporate executives, to show this film to them and to have that conversation with them about blindness and bringing people in who are fully capable of doing jobs at the highest levels and changing the sort of fabric of hiring as a whole in the US and around the world.
Such a good description of it. And I love the way you put it too, Jack. We were spending a lot of time talking about the film. It's not about inspiration. It's about demystification, I think is a really great way to put it. I like you word it that way. I think that captures our vision for what we're trying to do with this film, is to, show, getting back to the team example again, very few corporate jobs or public service jobs do we work alone. We're often as part of a collective high performing team. And this idea about somebody who's blind, they have excellent problem solving skills or excellent other skills, or just it could be anything, great listening skills. It could be anything that doesn't require sight, but it doesn't mean that all these other things are lacking. In fact, they oftentimes are enhanced. And we compare it to like a football team. You have a 300-pound defensive tackle. He's probably not going to be the best wide receiver, but you don't need him to be. You need him to be really good at what his job is on the field. And that's kind of that demystification of employment roles and athletic roles that we're really looking to highlight here. So I love the way you describe it that way, Jack.
How can people learn more about the upcoming movie?
I think that the website is probably the best way to learn about it. There are interviews, that other interviews that we've done. There's definitely race footage on Facebook. On the website, there's even the trailer for the film. There's a listing of sort of who's been involved in this project. But there's more to come. The new website with more of the new information is coming, because the film is just about to be finished. It will be launching as a sneak preview at the NFB National Convention on July 9th. We're trying to get a space, a movie theater close to the conference, and trying to do it that way.
And we like to put our practice into the process too. So in addition to this being about blind cyclists, we also have our composer, for instance, who we did an original motion picture score that's composed by a blind composer. We've been using other people with different disabilities, including blindness, on other aspects of the film. So we're really trying to live up to our own standards of inclusivity and showing how a great team can be composed of a diverse number of team members.
This is a really great movie. I can't wait to kind of see this. Like I said, encourages me to become more courageous, as somebody said. So Dan and Jack, if people want to connect with you or follow you on your journey, how can they find you? Dan?
Well, we have a website that's being further developed, which will be launching soon. Right now, they can find us on teamc2c.com. However, that is quickly changing to surpassingsight.com. So the name of the film is going to be Surpassing Sight. And the best way to reach us is going to be through that website. In the meantime, finding us on Team C2C on Facebook is the best way to stay in touch, to follow along, to see what's happening. And that's Team SEATOSEE. We were making a play on words there with the C to C because we were going from ocean to ocean, basically, and highlighting, of course, the vision aspect of the journey.
I am so excited. I just love you guys. You are true mentors to me. Listen, every time I spend time with you, I'm like, ooh, man, I gotta get up and run, walk, bike, something. Y'all stress me out.
Not when it's 115 degrees outside.
Yeah, not then.
No.
Right, that's my new excuse. So I love your competitiveness, and it does inspire me. But I love your courage as well, and your commitment to making this world a better place for people who are blind and low vision. I just thank you so much for your commitment to being positive role models and just truly making a significant difference in this world.
Absolutely. And I just need to ask you guys, what's next for Jack and Dan?
Yeah, so currently I lead a team of lawyers at Meta, or formerly known as Facebook, supporting the online advertising business. 97% of the company's revenue comes through the products of the product team I support. And I don't know, I mean, we certainly being able to have more impact. I really enjoy leading teams. I enjoy being a strategist. And so finding more opportunities to do that. I am, in addition to doing this movie, finishing up a book on disability and success and what the success factors are for people with disabilities. That's in progress.
Awesome.
And so hopefully that will be finished not too long from now, but looking to kind of expand some of this same message across other venues and other media as well.
Great.
So Jack, you left
That's
out,
awesome.
what's the next physical challenge?
Well, I've got four young boys, so I think that's pretty physically challenging in and of itself. But seriously, yeah, I just am enjoying, going running with them and that kind of thing, and just kind of taking things slowly with the guys and learning and growing with them.
That's a pretty
Damn.
huge physical challenge, keeping up with the
Yeah.
four too, I'm sure. I'm at the other end of the spectrum. I just had 3 graduates, 2 high school and one university this past May. So I'm on the other end of the child spectrum and taking a deep breath and saying, wow, what's this look like? Whew. I know it just doesn't seem to end though. There's always something new. And I do a lot of work in Africa now. I mean, having co-founded the company in Madagascar and joint ventures in Uganda, I'm now back onto that. So run an accelerator program for tech-enabled startups on the continent, looking for Black African founders and working on creating a African-based venture ecosystem that can help perpetuate the use of technology. Yeah, on the continent. And really, I mean, it's kind of a 30-year vision here, but the goal is really to get a self-perpetuating, finance-enabled technology system that allows use of this ubiquitous technology to solve these huge issues that are prevalent all throughout the continent over there. And tremendously smart people bringing more education, bringing technology, bringing that in line to solve some of these really big issues in the world. And so yeah, I love that, and again, being blind and spending time traveling to places like Senegal and Nairobi and Lagos. I mean, it's always challenging, but tremendously fulfilling. And, I see that, just being that role model, I'm unexpected when I get over there. And it's an always interesting reaction, to working with folks.
Well, thank you guys for sharing your journey with us today. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack
you very
and
much.
Dan. You guys are truly courageous and you're just amazing role models and friends. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Bold Blind Beauty on Air. Please subscribe. And if you enjoy this show, do recommend it to your friends and family. Thanks for listening, everyone.